Welcome back, Cheetah.
How did I know that was coming?
So, what the hell was that?
So for anyone who wasn't here a week ago, I cheated on Alasdair and hosted an episode of the podcast with someone that wasn't him.
Whoa! I hated it.
I'm sorry.
I listened. I just thought this isn't actually very good either.
You thought I have so many thoughts and feelings that I would chime in, and you couldn't.
And I couldn't. I was just screaming
at
myself,
screaming at the headphones,
just yelling opinions, and Josh kept getting in the way instead. So annoying.
Talking about bank tellers.
Yeah, no, we did pre-agree that. I gave Sam a pass to cheat. It's how we keep the relationship fresh.
It's okay. You can cheat on me at some point. Do you know what I think we need to do at some point? Is it's been discussed with my boyfriend that he wants to do an April Fool's episode of Wholala where they sign on it's your boyfriend and my boyfriend and we're not there all episode.
That's spoiled the fun.
Well, I'm not saying we'll do it, but I think it'll be fun.
I'm a bit surprised. That'd be quite cute. They'll be
terrible.
clueless.
They'll be awful at it, but like that'll be kind of the fun.
I wouldn't say they would just be flat bad at it.
They'd be entertaining, but you won't learn anything about an episode of Doctor Who.
Does anyone ever learn anything about Doctor Who for this podcast?
True.
This is a podcast for people who are happy to just hear us natter. And today will certainly be that. Today we're talking about underrated episodes of Doctor Who.
Yeah. No, I think that there are so many episodes of Doctor Who that are there's so many that are both overrated and underrated.
Yeah.
And I think we just want to shine a little light on some of the underrated specials.
Okay. Yeah. What made you think this was a topic that we needed to do? You're the schedule master of Wholala.
Alasdair messages me sort of tail end of the week before we're about to post, and he goes, "So what are we doing this week?"
Yeah, I'm just like, what are we doing? Like, what do I need to prep? What's my homework?
Yeah, well, no, I was thinking, because we often, in Series 1 of Wholala, we used to alternate every other week doing an episode review of Series 1 and a topic episode. And more recently, we've leaned more into episode reviews, which is fine. I love that. I love an episode review.
I love that.
But I just felt like I was in the mood for a bit more of a topic episode this week.
I
just think that I love that. Oh, we need to talk about this. Last week, before we get into the meat of this episode, we hosted a viewing party for the Church of Ruby Road.
Oh, we did.
For our friends, because last year we had a viewing party for every one of the anniversary specials.
We did.
And we all kind of were like, oh, we're not going to be able to do one because it's Christmas and blah, 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 but we're doing it in the new year.
That'd be so twisted if we tried to do it on Christmas.
Everyone has to meet up and leave their family.
Christmas Day. Hi, guys. Can you confirm, please? We need to know numbers.
So who's coming? I need to know how many Silent Screwdriver cocktails I'm making.
Hey, can you confirm? Hi, guys. I'm not hearing a lot of activity in this chat.
What's going on? No, so we had a group of Doctor Who people round, and it was really fun. What I've realised is watching an episode of Doctor Who that no one has seen before. Silence in the library, baby. Like, not a word is ushered. When you're rewatching an episode that everyone's already seen, especially one with a musical number in the middle of it.
Yeah,
chaos.
We were watching on Apple TV, which I've discovered this week, just like as a feature, doesn't have subtitles for my player, and I didn't get a word of it. I didn't get a word of that episode.
Thank God you've already seen it.
Thank God I'd already seen it, but we might as well have had it on mute, truly. And the more I tried to turn up the episode, the more everyone just kind of got louder to meet it.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it was really fun. It was so fun watching with everyone, especially when the Goblin song came on, and like being in a group of people who all love it and know every single word to this damn song. Yeah. And we were all singing it together. It was actually like such a joyous moment.
It was a lovely, silly moment. Yeah. Did you feel it kind of held up on rewatch? Ruby Road?
I think so, yeah. We were talking before we started recording about like potential overrated episodes, which I think is also another Wholala episode in the future, perhaps.
The hater episode.
The hater episode.
I'm such a good hater. I'd be good at that.
But no, I do think actually Ruby Road held up. I think that it's really fun. I'm excited because it's a piece in a puzzle that we haven't got all of yet.
Yeah.
And do you know what was really interesting? That they posted all of the Doctor Who scripts this week.
They did.
And the script for the Church on Ruby Road was released. And when that woman was in the bar listening to Ruby play, and it was saying like, oh, the woman from the second special, we'll be seeing more of her.
Yes.
Which kind of confirmed it. I kind of wish they hadn't.
What's her name?
Mrs.
Flood?
Mrs. Flood, yeah. No, sorry, no, Mrs. Flood's the neighbour. This is the woman who is from Wild Blue Yonder.
Yes, what's her name? She has a name.
She has a name. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
Mrs. Merridew?
Oh, I think it was Mrs. Merridew
because there's a YouTube poop of like top 5 Mrs. Merridew moments, and it like dissects her 3 lines into her top 5 moments, which I really really like. Yeah, it was good. It was a fun one. I'm very excited to see a bit more of Shooty and Millie.
Yeah.
In May.
Well, it's crazy because this is the season of Wholala where we'll start getting new Shooty episodes.
We'll have a full series to talk about.
I mean, can you believe it's mid-Feb?
Mid-Feb, and I've spent all my money. Now what?
I want to know what Wholala content the listeners want us to do when we come to shooty season, because we truly went in for the specials and they were only 3 weeks. These are going to be 8 weeks of episodes.
By the end of it, I'm going to be a husk of a podcaster.
A shell of your previous self. Well, look, we've got loads of new episodes to look forward to in May. But before we get to there, I did want to stop off at some underrated episodes and have a look back on some favourite.
We tweeted out and said, what is that one underrated Doctor Who episode that you will defend to the death? Mm-hmm. And we had a few responses from you, which was great because you didn't know you were helping us make podcast content.
Exactly.
We had so many great responses. At an Awful Jack said, "You've got it, Kill the Moon."
Yeah, Sean Edit said, "The Husbands of River Song. It's such a camp, funny, high-speed romp of an adventure with great performances to boot, and it looks great and wraps up River Song timeline beautifully."
Ethan, friend of the pod, said The Rings of Akhaten.
I also love that. And Ethan, I know you're listening. Every time we say about Ethan, we're like, Ethan, friend of the pod. He features in every single episode for like maybe the last 20 episodes. Andrew said The BAFTA Below, which we may be looking at later.
The BAFTA Below. I love that so much. Matt said The Rings of Akhaten as well. He said, "I'll accept the middle as a tad messy, but Clara saving the world by coming to terms with the death of her mum is poetry. Small human gestures spiraling out into the universe and defining events. Now that is what Doctor Who is to me."
That's so true. Matthew said, "Hands down, my favourite episode of Doctor Who makes me cry every time, The Girl Who Waited."
Electronic Dan said Terminus, and unfortunately we're not that familiar with Classic Who, but Classic Who fans, Terminus? Yes?
Yes, he also said The Sensorites, The Faceless Ones, Colony in Space, Castrovalva, and Battlefield. Castrovalva is, I wouldn't even say Castrovalva is underrated. I think that's it's just an all-round good episode.
Jacob said Love and Monsters. We did a really deep dive into Love and Monsters a few weeks ago with Hamish Steele, and we had a lot of fun talking about that one. We sincerely back Love and Monsters as a classic.
Exactly. If you haven't listened to that episode, you should go back. We had Hamish Steele on the podcast, and it genuinely became one of the most insightful episodes we've ever done.
That was such a deep read. I loved it. Every time I wanted to make a silly joke about Jackie, Hamish kept bringing it back around to no, this is why this is actually a piece of literature. I was like, oh yeah.
Daniel said Sleep No More in my top 10 of all time.
Official Britman said The Beast Below is so good you don't understand.
The Campiness Patrol, also amazing name, said Paradise Towers. There's so many good classic episodes in here.
They did. There's loads more that we won't read out right now, but Fear Her, Extremis, The Monster of Peladon, Boomtown, 42, Listen. There's tons more that you all said.
Attack of the Cybermen. There's so many. Thank you so much for reaching out to us, because there are, this is the big takeaway that I want to come from this. There are so many underrated episodes of Doctor Who that just don't get the spotlight it deserves.
There's also just so many episodes of Doctor Who.
That's not true.
There's so many episodes of Doctor Who.
Well, look, as we said, we have taken a few of the suggestions that you sent to us and thought these are the ones that a lot of people said.
These are the ones that are coming up more than once that maybe warrant a little bit of a deeper dive.
Exactly. But before we jump into that, we just want to quickly let you know what are underrated episodes. Also, what would you say is your underrated episode?
Okay, I actually really struggled to think what my underrated episode was. So I had to Google worst Doctor Who episodes and just see if there was any I disagreed with. And there wasn't really anything on there that I felt that strongly about that was coming up in these lists. One that came up in the kind of underrated list was The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. And I don't know if I'd say that's one that's underrated because it comes up in a lot of people's favourite episode lists. It comes up in the best 10th Doctor story lists. But it's certainly a favourite for me. I actually rewatched it the other day for fun and roped my poor boyfriend into watching it with me. And I just think it's so good. If not underrated, I just think it's excellent.
Yeah.
I would have otherwise said Love Monsters. I would have said Fear Her, Boomtown, but we've talked about all of those and we've said a lot more about those in those episodes. Go and have a listen to those. But this two-parter is so great. It's one of the stories, I think, where the Doctor is genuinely very frightened and unsettled.
Yeah.
It challenges what he knows about the universe. I think meeting Satan as well is just an utterly wild episode concept. It's one of those things you'd think Doctor Who just sort of can't do, and it went there, which I think is great.
Yeah.
And they kind of tackled that controversial subject, looking at religion in a way that leaves enough to the imagination so it doesn't sort of support or deny anyone's beliefs. So that was really cool. Lots of really genuinely frightening moments in that. The Ood being possessed, Toby with all the symbols all over his face. I know that was a character. You had to scribble out of Doctor Who Adventures magazine every time you got it. You had to cross out his face.
It's not even the religious subtext to it. There was just something about someone having these markings on their face and like being completely out of control. Like he was just, and the red eyes as well. He was so. I used to call him Red Eye Man.
He was terrifying.
He was terrifying.
So scary.
Yeah.
One episode I'd love to see a modern remake of is this one, because the VFX in this one have not aged good.
No, they've not. I feel like they might have benefited from having done a practical costume on an actor that was then scaled up for the Beast rather than the CGI monster that they did, because it doesn't age.
There's even simple things like all the views outside the windows and things look.
I don't think that do you know what I think is bad in that episode visual effects wise is that when someone's floating in space in the black hole, they filmed it in a swimming pool.
Yeah, and can
they're
tell.
Blue. Like they're meant to be in like
blue.
an orangey space, but they are blue.
They are blue. So that was cool. Also, fun fact, did you know it was broadcast in the week of 666, the 6th of June 2006?
No, that must have been intentional.
I think so. Apparently in that week there was a lot of like devil related stuff on TV. Which is quite fun.
That is so fun.
Isn't that fun? Now, I've seen what you've picked for yours, and I'm
you don't agree with it.
I'm like, bold.
Okay.
That is bold.
So I have chosen for mine that I would like to defend. I think that the episode in Series 7B, The Crimson Horror, deserves a little bit more love. And let me tell you why. So I can't believe I'm sat defending
Tell me why.
So I think that Doctor Who is the best show on Earth. And it's also the worst show on Earth. It is beautiful and it is ugly.
Yeah.
And I think that episodes like The Crimson Horror need to be in a series of Doctor Who.
They're so important.
I'm here to defend this. I really do think they are. Because it's a one-off episode that reintroduces characters that we would know, like the Paternoster Gang. I think that this is basically a Paternoster Gang spin-off episode that features the Doctor.
And the Paternoster Gang, if you're not sure about this a lot, it's the lesbian lizard and her Victorian chum,
aka known as Madame Vastra and Jenny Flint.
That's it. And they run around with a Sontaran called Strax.
You've obviously not watched The Crimson Horror in a while.
I've not.
So for anyone who hasn't had a refresh on the episode in a while, it's a Victorian episode featuring the Paternoster Gang and the 11th Doctor and Clara. And there is a unnatural phenomenon called the Crimson Horror, where people are turning red and their bodies are stiffening and they're basically becoming a bit like zombies. And partway through, we see the Doctor become one of these zombies. So the villain is called Mr. Sweet and Mrs. Sweet, this little scary old lady. And it turns out that he's like a red leech.
Oh, he's horrible.
That's like sucking on her tit, basically.
Yeah.
And I just think that episodes like this need to be. I hope that in the 8-episode series that we get with Shooty, with all the money behind it, we do get the odd, fun, silly episode like this, because I like that it is an episode that doesn't particularly focus on the Doctor. It's more focusing on the ensemble.
Sure.
And I like that it's a period piece. I like that there's humour to it. I like that it's not that deep. It doesn't continue past that episode. I think there is just so much fun. One of my notes I wrote for this is just campus tits. I actually can't wait to go on about this episode, like to do a whole episode on this.
Mr. Sweet is defeated in the end by just getting like mashed with a walking stick, isn't he?
Absolutely battered.
Just literally mashed to bits. Exactly. And that's the bit that stands out in my mind. There's also another like horny 11th Doctor moment in this, where like Jenny like sheds her normal outfit to reveal this like leather one piece, and he kind of like flicks his sonic screwdriver up in like a bit of like a boner gag, and you're like,
I think he kisses Jenny at one point in it, and she's a bit like, "Get off me!"
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not here to say this is a perfect episode, but I do think that it's my point with bringing it up in this episode is I think that it is overly hated on when I actually think it's a bit of a fun romp. I'm not here to say it's better than the Impossible Planet Satan Pit, because that's just not true. But I will also say I don't think the Impossible Astronaut and Satan Pit is underrated.
It's an underrated story. So I cheated to make myself look like I had better taste. I was like, oh, I couldn't find one. Let me think. Well, anyway, without further ado, let's get into some of the stories that you picked as underrated classics. So one of them is the Rings of Akhaten, and we're going to go through the story for you now.
Yes, exactly. So the Rings of Akhaten was the second episode in Series 7B, and it features the 11th Doctor and Clara of the Crimson Horror fame.
Shut up. The Doctor watches Clara's parents meet for the first time. A leaf blows into Clara's dad's face as he stumbles into the road, where her mother saves him from being hit by a car, and they fall in love. The Doctor watches Clara grow up like a normal human, but he says, she's not possible.
A day after a previous adventure, the Doctor picks up Clara to see something awesome. They go to the planet Akhaten to see the Festival of Offerings. Clara befriends Mary, the young Queen of Years, who's a nervous ceremonial singer. Clara encourages her to go through with the ceremony. Mary sings a hymn for Grandfather, the old god. However, said god very unexpectedly interrupts little Mary's song and drags her towards its tomb.
The Doctor and Clara fly to the tomb on hoverbikes to save Mary. The gang are trapped with a mummified vampire. Mary wants to let it feed on her memories to save them, but the Doctor refuses to let her. It turns out the mummy isn't the old god, it was the old god's alarm clock. The old god is the entire planet.
While Mary sings, the Doctor exposes his memories to the old god. This isn't quite enough to defeat it, however, so Clara rushes back into the tomb to offer the monster her leaf, not just its memories, but Clara's grief at what might have been if her mother hadn't died. The thought of innumerable possibilities is stronger than the Doctor's years of life, and the planet gorges itself on Clara's grief and dies.
How was that for a summary?
That was a real whistle. I mean, this is the thing. For this episode, all of the episodes we're talking about now, we've deliberately chosen ones that we haven't already done an episode on Wholala for.
Yeah.
And we probably will do an episode of Wholala down the road.
Oh, one day.
So we didn't... Oh, one day, baby. So we didn't want to go too deep into the episode summary, but that was a very good... Well done, Alasdair.
Thank you so much. I took the regular route, which is to plagiarize someone else's work and slightly reword it. And it's got me through university, my career so far. I'm joking. I'm kidding.
Oh, so you wrote it all by hand?
You know, my exams at uni I did by hand, and you've seen my handwriting.
Chicken scratch.
It's like, it's not even like a doctor's writing.
It's worse.
It's nothing.
When Alasdair writes us a birthday card,
I have to come over and be like, shall I read it to you?
It takes us a good minute to realise that it's from him.
Well, you know it's from me because you can't read it.
I'm like, oh, they let the child write.
Oh, that's nice. They let little Benny write it.
Where's my Benny?
Where's my Benny?
Notice how that's not on this list.
Yeah. That's not an underrated classic.
But no, with the Rings of Akhaten, I think this is a very valid contribution to the
great
episodes.
contribution. Thanks
Great
so
contribution. I think that a lot of people on Twitter said that this was one of the ones that they would have voted, and I think that rightfully so. It's not one that I would jump to rewatch, but it is one that when I do rewatch it, I really enjoy.
I haven't seen it in a very long time, so I'm thinking about this one from memory. My stand-up memory of this one is the song with it.
But that's because you love a soundtrack.
I love the soundtrack. They, I think, released two versions of it. One is the vocal version, which is the song that Mary sings. There's one which is just the instrumental, which, as you always know, is my preference. Yeah. I love songs without words.
And you hate songs with words.
So that's the standout thing for me. The other standout memory, I think, is almost feeling like this was an episode where the ambition probably outstripped what was possible.
It's a bit like they didn't quite have the means to create the piece they wanted.
Yeah, they wanted to do this huge epic, a god that looks like a planet. They wanted to have this massive ensemble of alien creatures in a market and attending this ceremony. They wanted to have hoverbikes kind of hopping from planet to tomb. And I think the execution from memory is a bit wobbly.
I'm going to say something I didn't like about it and something I do love about it.
Do that.
So the thing I didn't love about it, which I think you highlighted well in your summary that you definitely didn't plagiarize, was that the visual villain we had of the mummy vampire was like an alarm clock. Like, I think that was just like a silly plot point.
I forgot that, but like as I read/wrote it, copied and pasted it, I was like, that's so Moffat-y.
It's so Moffat-y,
like,
right?
Oh no, that's not the god, that's the alarm clock.
Like, it just, that felt a little bit like they wanted a visual of what the villain might be, because obviously they're trying to reserve the surprise of, oh no, it's the planet.
Yeah.
And it being the alarm clock, I think, is a bit of like a cheap cut for a villain. One thing I do like, sorry, this isn't my thing I love about the episode, this is a little thing I like, is that there are so many different aliens that we see.
Yeah.
Some of which we've spoken about before in the podcast, are hobbled together from old costumes from previous monsters. I know that like the head from the Hoiks had the mouth guard from the Hath and the tendrils from the Ood attached together, and it made one alien.
None of these words are in the Bible.
None of these words are in the Bible.
The mouth guard from the Hoiks? Do you hear yourself?
But I do like that.
The tendrils from the Ood?
can't
These
believe
things aren't wholly all right.
these aren't wholly right. I'll tell you something that is wholly right. Is
Go on.
the Doctor's speech towards the end of the episode.
Oh,
so this is
that's
my big love
nice.
for this episode, and this is why I do think it deserves to be in this underrated episode classic. Is that the Doctor does an amazing speech to the planet.
You're going to go Jacob Dubman.
So I'm going to do my very best Jacob Dubman here. I'm going to just read a little moment from this. So the Doctor says, I walked away from the Great Last Time War. I marked the passing of the Time Lords. I saw the birth of the universe and I watched as time ran out, moment by moment until nothing remained. No time, no space, just me. I walked in a universe where the laws of physics were devised by the mind of a madman. I've watched universes freeze and creations burn. I've seen things you wouldn't believe. I've lost things you will never understand. And I know things, secrets that must never be told, knowledge that must never be spoken, knowledge that will make parasite gods blaze. So come on then, take it. Take it all, baby. Have it. You have it all. It's Matt Smith's delivery in that scene. I'm not even going to try and mimic him because it's such a great speech from Moffat. I'm not actually sure if Moffat wrote this episode, but it's such a great speech and it's so well delivered that it's so ingrained, I think, in my memory.
Clara said, psych, leaf.
She really did. I have a friend who shall remain nameless, but I know they listen to this podcast and I know I'm going to get a text from them once this is done, where they went to a meet and greet with Jenna Coleman and on the way there, they picked up a leaf from a car park and brought it with them and made her hold it for the photo op. And they're going to hate I've said this story, but they'll know who they are.
What did she think of it?
I don't want to know.
Oh my God, I bet she
I think that's
hated
iconic.
that.
It made an amazing photo.
I don't think she has a good time with the fans, which is not her fault.
So I'm guessing you're a Doctor Who fan then?
So I'm guessing you're a Doctor Who fan, man. The other one, did you see the Billie Piper one that I've got my bookmarks, which is her reacting to, I think, John Barrowman coming back into the show quite recently.
Why did they bring him back?
Why did he get to come back?
And then she goes, oh! Oh, it's so funny.
Love her. Love her.
Yeah, no, I think the Rings of
Akhaten.
Akhaten
You
is a
like
great
the
one.
show. I'm glad it brings you comfort. I'm glad it gives you hope. Does it make you feel hopeful?
It's when someone says, like, what's your favourite moment? It's like, what, like a line that I said? Or,
Oh, right. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Are you thinking of a particular line?
My favourite thing is seeing David Tennant and Billie Piper at, like, Comic-Cons. When someone asks Billie Piper a very direct question about Doctor Who, and David goes, oh, why don't I take this one, Billy? And Billy's
Billy?
like, yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that.
But no, I think that the Rings of Akhaten is a very, very worthy inclusion.
A great worthy inclusion. Again, would benefit from, a little more budget. The hover bikes, I remember the hover bikes. I think they were like, oh, we're so clever. It would work so well. Instead of moving the bike, we can move the camera. And then it will look like the bike is moving. And it does not look like the bike is moving. So I think it's moments like that. And I think from memory, Jenna Coleman is kind of swaying side to side with like a fan on her. And it's,
It's not great.
No.
But listen, all of these episodes, like we said, we've specifically chosen episodes we've not done on Wholala. And we do want to do on Wholala.
Yeah.
So please let us know. Do you want to have a Rings of Akhaten full Wholala episode?
Yeah, let us know. I'm kidding. Yeah, let us know. Maybe there's demand. 42 is another episode that was named underrated by the fans. So we're going to give you a little recap of that story. It's been a while. Cast your mind back
to 2007.
2007, Series 3 of Doctor Who. Freeman Adjaman is playing Martha Jones.
And David Tennant is still the Doctor.
He's still the Doctor. And I believe it's a story written by Chris Chibnall, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, sure. Should I start this one?
Sure.
So in this episode, the Doctor and Martha land on a spaceship that's being pulled into a nearby sun. The room they landed in rises to unbelievable temperatures, trapping them. Martha and the Doctor have only 42 minutes to save the ship, the crew, and themselves. Meanwhile, a member of the crew has contracted a mysterious illness, with the body temperature rising to an impossible height, and he can scorch his fellow crew members to death.
The only way to save the ship is to pass through a security system, which the crew inconveniently programmed while they were drunk, and decided it would be a good idea to make it a series of obscure trivia questions.
Martha phones her mum for help, but before she makes it to the finish, another crew member gets infected and corners Martha and a crew member into an escape pod. The Doctor rushes the escape pod controls, but it's too late. It's already been released into the sun.
The Doctor gets on his spacesuit to save Martha, but as he's clinging to the side of the spaceship, he gets a closer look at the sun. The sun is alive, and it's angry. The Doctor, succumbing to the same possession that claimed 2 crew members, reveals that the only way the sun will let them go is if they return the stolen sun particles that the ship has been using for fuel. Martha takes care of it and saves the day because the Doctor is preoccupied with screaming, "Burn with me!"
Ooh, that makes me so nostalgic for that time.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, I love 42. I think it's a really good episode.
I remember it being a bit of a laugh as well.
Well, the big takeaway is that the guy from Waterloo Road was in it. I always remember that. Tom, or was he called Tom? I think it was called Tom.
There was loads of soap stars in this.
Yeah, there really were, yeah. I actually saw the captain from the ship. I can't remember her character's name, but I saw her in the Sainsbury's by me.
Is she like an EastEnders?
I think she's an EastEnders
alum. She feels like an EastEnders alum. Yeah. Again, this is all from memory. I think the idea as well of them becoming trapped because it's a bit similar to the Impossible Planet Satan Pit, where the TARDIS has got kind of, dropped off a cliff or something because the room was lost in an earthquake or whatever. But the room is too hot. They can't go in because it's now 300 degrees in there or something.
Yeah.
That always, for me, makes an episode immediately more scary, is when they don't have an exit route.
Yeah, I recently rewatched Under the Lake and Before the Flood, and that really reminded me of 42, where they're in an underwater base, and every so often the villains flood an area so there's less places they can go. And it's the same kind of thing where it's like, oh, that area's too hot, we can't go there. They're limiting the places they can be.
I like that because one of my fears... Let me be vulnerable on the pod.
Oh, go for it.
I get quite claustrophobic.
Okay.
And one of my things in general is I hate a situation. You know me, I don't want to be in a situation for even an hour. A situation where I can't leave, like claustrophobic.
Claustrophobic, Darren.
I'm claustrophobic, Darren. If I was on a spaceship and it was like, by the way, we can't get off and we're falling into the sun, I'd have such a meltdown.
When would you decide to just jump out the window?
You know what? That bit where Martha gets projected into the sun on the escape pod, I'd be like, fine.
She has a good snog before she does.
Does she? With who?
With the guy in the space pod. They have a good little snog.
Do they?
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah. You really need to rewatch this episode.
Love this episode.
Love it, yeah. No,
I love this episode.
I really like this. What I like about this is that it gives Martha a true moment to shine as companion by herself. So she's going through the sort of maze of trivia questions, trying to get to the end to release the sun particles. And the Doctor obviously gets possessed. And it's one of those episodes where the Doctor doesn't save the day. The companion saves the day.
Yeah.
And I love when... I think that there is at least one moment in every companion's tenure where the Doctor cannot save the day and it is up to them. And I think this is one of, and it's happened a few times with Martha, especially sort of towards the finale, but it's one of those moments. I love Martha.
I'm starting to worry that RTD isn't bringing her back.
I was so certain that he was bringing her back.
Okay,
I'm leave Rumble on the pod. We are not sponsored by the BBC. How does everyone feel about the specials in Russell?
How does everyone feel about the specials?
How does everyone feel? Because we did our episodes on them, and I think we have some thoughts.
The realization in real time that we clowned all the way through the last year. And we're like, wait, there's no unit spin-off?
So we...
so
no, there will
back.
be a unit spin-off.
I don't think so.
Listen, that's a story for another day. Let's talk about 42. I love Martha, and I hope they bring her back. Oh my God, did you see the other day that Russell posted a selfie in the TARDIS being like, another day at work, and people commenting like, Freema's off screen, right? Like, Freema's there too.
Right?
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 We can only hope. I truly, I've said this before on the pod, I truly think that Martha deserves another go. I think that Freema needs to come back to Doctor Who.
I love the way that this is, by the way, escalated beyond. At one point, it was like, oh, Freema should be a returning character in a unit spin-off. And I've seen so many tweets since then that have been like, Martha deserves another full series. Like,
I've thought this.
Complete new series as a full-time companion.
I was going to say they've never done it before. All of the most recent episodes we had was this with the Doctor and Donna.
Yeah.
But you know what? I loved it. I think that Martha definitely deserves more episodes. I don't know whether she should have a whole other tenure, but I do think that Freema and Martha deserve to come back. Because this episode is just another showcase of why Martha was so great and why we all did her dirty in 2007.
I'd love to know, like, how she coping with being widowed.
But yeah, no, I completely understand why 42 would be on this list of underrated episodes. I think that it has so much fun. It has danger. Much as the visuals haven't necessarily aged incredibly well, it does push the boat with what they could do at the time. And it's an exciting episode. It's definitely one worth a rewatch.
What's so interesting, what you're saying about the visuals, is this is an episode that only exists in my memory because I haven't gone back to it in at least a decade.
Oh, I've watched it since then.
And so I think, like, when you haven't seen it for that long, the way it lives in my mind is like modern VFX
Yeah.
until you go back.
I did a rewatch in 2020, which was everything that had come up until that point, and I enjoyed it. I don't really have any like huge negatives to this episode. I think the CGI doesn't age that well, but it never does.
But do you know what I mean? Like, it's where the visuals
stick in your head.
They grow up with you until you go back.
They
kind
like, of update themselves in your brain. I know.
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
Very weird. Like
Very weird.
how all shows are kind of in HD until you watch them in your head.
This is why whenever I try and get anyone who's not a huge Doctor Who fan to watch Series 1, Christopher Eccleston, and in my head it's peak television because it is peak writing.
It's peak writing.
But visuals? Like the visuals in the End of the World? Would you say the End of the World is an unrated episode?
The End of the World, which one?
With Cassandra?
No, I think it's appropriately rated.
Fair. Okay, so we do have one more episode we're going to talk about on this, but I want to quickly ask you this. What do you think is the most underrated episode of Series 1?
The most underrated episode of Series 1 is probably either Boomtown, which I did not review very kindly.
You slandered Boomtown when we talked about that.
Yes, it was a long time ago. I was very young then. I don't stand by everything I've ever said. That was a different person speaking. Or The Long Game, which I didn't even turn up for that one.
You did? Have you actually watched?
No, I did. I actually saw that episode and then I listened to your review while I was shopping.
I've done a few episodes now with different guests where you've either not been able to make it or I've just booted you off the podcast.
Yeah.
But that was the only time where circumstance happened that we just couldn't record together that week quite last minute. And so I recorded the episode alone.
Where was I? How did that affect that?
And you said, I can't finish this edit because but there's only ever been one episode where just through circumstance you couldn't record at the time we needed, and so I did a solo episode, and that was the one that was about the long game. And it made me realise there are so many different allegories in that episode, like the whole Wizard of Oz thing, like trying to find the wizard, but the wizard isn't what you thought it was, like, the room isn't made of gold. That's a very good choice.
If you boil it down, everything's the Wizard of Oz.
I'm not kidding. Yeah.
Because one of these episodes, I was reading other people's opinions on it.
Were they saying the Wizard of Oz? The Rings of Akhaten is very Wizard of Oz.
Was it that one? There was one that people were like, oh, it's kind of the Wizard of Oz when you think about it. I don't think it was one of these. But listen, boil it down enough, everything's the Wizard of Oz. No, you know what it was?
What?
Journey to the Center of the TARDIS.
Really?
Someone was like, yeah, it's Wizard of Oz when you think about it. They were like, one of the brothers is the Tin Man, one of them is the Cowardly Lion.
I see that. I
don't know who Clara was.
Dorothy?
I get who's the Doctor?
The wizard? Ooh, we can't.
But then they had to get to the engine. Is the TARDIS the wizard?
The TARDIS is probably Oz, right? We need to do a deep dive on it. I'm excited to do an episode on Jones Central.
Should we just rebrand Wholala? Every episode from now is us comparing every episode to the Wizard of Oz.
Listen, anyone that knows me knows that I would love that.
Have you read the books?
Yeah.
Are
The Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
Not as good as the film. Well, much as I would love to talk about the Wizard of Oz for the entirety of this podcast, I will move the conversation on to the last of these underrated episodes. And the final underrated episode that you guys suggested was The Beast Below.
And we've summarised this story for you as well.
In the classroom aboard Starship UK, young Timmy faces a creepy robot teacher who gives him a harsh grade. Ignoring warnings, Timmy boards an elevator only to discover that it's not taking him to London, it's taking him to floor 0. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Amy arrive on the spaceship, exploring a seemingly ordinary market, but they realise this world is a police state. The Doctor's odd actions attract attention.
The two are separated. Amy investigates a strange hole, while the Doctor encounters a cloaked woman called Liz 10, who seeks his help. Amy wakes up in a voting booth, and there are 3 buttons before her: protest, forget, and record. Amy is shown the history of the Starship UK and chooses to forget. On screen, Amy sees a recording of herself before she forgot, pleading, "This isn't a trick, this is for real. You've got to find the Doctor and get him off this ship."
The Doctor arrives and chooses to smack the protest button. The Doctor and Amy are ejected into a chamber resembling a mouth, realising they're on a tongue. Liz 10 helps them escape. Together, they discover that the ship is powered by a tortured star whale, trapped to save humanity. When the solar flares originally roasted the Earth, the UK weren't quite quick enough to make it onto a ship. The people were saved by a star whale, and if they stop torturing it, the ship will disintegrate and they will all die.
Facing an impossible choice, the Doctor prepares to end the creature's suffering. Amy, realising the truth, chooses to release the whale, saving the ship. To their surprise, the Starship UK starts moving faster. The kindly old whale simply wanted to help in the first place. They didn't need to torture or trap it. It came because it couldn't bear to see children cry.
That is so classic, like Moffat. I think.
So Moffat, last of its kind, couldn't bear to see a child cry.
Yeah.
It's like, what's this, episode 2 of series 5?
Episode 2, series 5, yeah.
And he goes right in with that kind of mythology he builds around the Doctor, right? Like, last of his kind will always come if he sees a child crying. He comes back to that lot, I think, even in Clara's era. He talks about that.
Yeah. I really love, because it just applies in real life as well, but I really love that line where it says that if you see a child crying and making noise, they're doing it for attention. If they're silently crying, you know something's wrong. My main sort of criteria for deciding whether or not an episode is underrated or not is if it's one that I would jump to rewatch. And I would say The Beast Below isn't one that I would jump to rewatch, but it is a very good episode. I love the opening where Amy is being held above the TARDIS in space and she's like all the floating hair. It's so beautiful. It's so fairy tale. It's so...
I forget that footage exists outside of a trailer.
Right? I know. My name is Leah Bond.
My name's Leah Bond, and when I was a little girl, I met a magical man in the box, and I ran away.
In a box.
What
did you think of the Smilers?
Yeah, scary. Again, like, Moffat is good at monsters.
Yeah.
And I actually have always found that kind of like fortune teller in a box kind of thing quite scary. What is it? What's that film where that guy, like, the little boy goes to a fortune teller and he becomes a grown up?
Big.
Is that what it
With
is?
Tom Hanks, Big.
Is that what it is?
It's not a fortune teller, it's a fortune telling like robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's big.
Scary,
yeah.
And it has that vibe to it.
I agree.
And yeah, when the kind of face rotates and it's got like a horrible frown on the other side.
It's when they open the booth and they stand up and start walking.
I don't even remember that.
Oh, we need to see all of these. We need to do Hula episodes
for. Maybe they're underrated.
Maybe they're underrated.
But yeah, I enjoyed this story. You know who else is in this one? Did you ever see the Demon Headmaster?
Yeah, he is. He's one of the Winders.
He's one of the politicians, and they're like half robot.
Winder, yeah, the Winders.
Oh, okay.
There were the Smilers and then the Winders. But no, you're so right. I completely.
A Winder's like half robot.
Yeah, because then there's Peter the Winder. Peter, the Winder's here.
The bit that I always found funny about this one as well is like this like tower block of Surrey.
Literally. I just love it has a huge Union Jack on the front of it.
And then they said like Scotland had its own ship.
Yeah.
It's a little independence gag for you there.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I do really think that this is a fun episode of Doctor Who. I really like the sort of secondary introduction we get to Amy, where I feel like obviously we were introduced to her in the 11th hour, but this is where we really get to see her like under pressure and outside of her comfort zone.
Yeah.
Outside of Ledworth.
Yes, I do. And that she performs well. There's loads in this that you can read in a much more intelligent and deep way than I can about what you can say about kind of someone having to be the victim to kind of allow everyone else's lives to continue the way they do.
It's got a big comment on, well, this is the way things have been done and it's generally okay, so surely it's fine to carry on.
Yeah.
And it needs someone to stop and say, just because something has been okay for you doesn't mean that the suffering of the people warrant the
It has
outcome.
to keep going this way.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also the false choice between like, well, either we carry on like torturing this whale or we're all gonna die.
Mhm.
So like, what do you want to do?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very, very good episode and one that I don't always think of as underrated because I just assume that everyone thinks it's as good as I do. But I agree that it's just not one I jump to rewatch. So
Amy choosing forget. Yeah, people are gonna die.
that's terrible, but
Inevitable?
inevitable.
Maybe I should be doing this right
Maybe
now.
I should be doing this right now. But yeah, no, I completely agree. I think The Beast Below, it warrants this underrated episodes list. And like we said, there are so many different episodes that you guys reached out to us for. There's a whole plethora of both new and classic and new Who.
New Who. Yeah, I guess it is.
Is it the Whoniverse era? So we've got now classic Who, new Who, and Whoniverse.
Yeah.
Can I be vulnerable on the pod?
Go on.
I hate how on iPlay they've now separated 2005 to new. Because for anyone who's not a diehard Whovian that knows how to look, they're like, oh, I can't find it.
Yeah,
like,
no, I can't find it.
Literally.
I searched Doctor Who and there's like 2 results. And I'm like, well, it's neither of those. Let me be more specific.
Yeah. I feel like they should have just done the Series 1 reboot for international audiences. Because I get that if it's on Disney Plus, you don't want to start on Series 14. But for the UK, they just kept it all in the same. Even if they changed the name, they just keep it all.
I don't really.
I'm a big fan of rebooting the series numbers for every Doctor. So you have Chris Ferguson Series 1, or like 9th Doctor Series 1, 10th Doctor Series 1, 10th Doctor Series 2.
Oh my God.
I like that.
I actually was quite keen on almost like names for every series, like, you know, Flux as a series.
Bad Wolf.
I do like the idea of a name for each series. I think kind of works quite well.
You love a subtitle. Not subtitle, you love a subheading.
Like, this is the adventure we're on for this season.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah, it was a fun sort of whistle-stop tour through some underrated episodes of Doctor Who.
It was. It was
Yeah.
lovely.
And as we said before, we do want to hear from you, so please make sure that you reach out to us and let us know what underrated episodes you think we missed. You can reach out to us on all of our social media. We're on X, the app formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, all of which are at Wholala Pod. Let us know.
And if you'd love to support the podcast, then please do share this episode with someone you think might enjoy it. Give us a rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. What else do we ask people to do?
Donate to our coffee.
Donate to our coffee if you really want. We're
saving up for a Dalek.
We are. We're saving up for a Dalek. We would be so delighted. That whole, like, if I won the lottery, I wouldn't tell people, but I'd have signs. We said it before. We'd buy the Dalek.
I was looking into it after we were talking about it. I think it's $4,000 for the actual Dalek, but then an additional, I think maybe £500 something if you want the eye to light up.
Fine.
I want the eye to light up.
Fine. That's right. We can do that.
We
we need at least
$4,500.
We need at least $4,500. So if we could get that rolling, that would be great. Let's aim for that end of week.
Exactly. But in the meantime, if you could share us on your stories, give us a review if you feel that way inclined, we would really appreciate it. It really helps out the pod. And next week, we are very excited because we're taking a trip to the 90s to watch a certain film about our Doctor.
I actually was so excited for this one. We're going to watch the TV movie this week. I'm really excited to get into this one. We're going all the way back to 1996.
1996, baby.
The year I was born. You weren't even an embryo, were you?
I was at some point in 96.
No, you at some point.
At some point in 96 I was. Maybe not when this was released.
You weren't breathing the air like me.
I wasn't breathing the air like you.
Oh my God, that'll have really freaked out some of our listeners who are a bit older than that. I'm so sorry, guys.
Not you outing them. Well, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Wholala Pod, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
We're very excited to see you there. But yeah, in the meantime, reach out to us on @Wholala We're very excited to hear from you. Have a lovely week.
Have a lovely week, and we'll see you in the 90s.
See you in the 90s.
Bye.
Bye.